Give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds. We give you Chattanooga and the world. This is Clutch with Keon Rose. I'm Keon Rose. Thank you for listening today. There is an abundance of things to talk about. There always is. When is there not? This is a talk station. AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. Search Hot News Talk Radio. We're the first thing that comes up. You search us on YouTube, you can listen to classic episodes, and you get to see what we look like, what the station looks like a little bit, what we look like as we talk to you. And you want to listen to us on your phone, on your computer. If you go to hotnewstalkradio.com, just open up a little tab for us, press minimize. We'll be in the corner. If you pull up the TuneIn Radio app, which you can find in the Apple Store or the Google Play Store on most mobile devices, you can search Hot News Talk Radio, give us a follow, and press play. And you too will have Hot News Talk Radio wherever you go. So I'm excited today to talk to you about the Washington Redskins, even though they lost last night. And I was watching the game, and I want to tell you that I was completely disappointed, but I really wasn't. I was not shocked that they started off as slowly as they did, and I was shocked that they continued to compete, even though we were coming down to the end of the game, and it looked like the game was over, and the Redskins made it kind of interesting at the end. So I'm okay. Redskins lose to the Cowboys 32-24. And Kirk Cousins looked terrible, and then he looked good, and then he looked okay. And Eli Manning looked like Eli Manning. He looked like the guy that's asking for the money. That's what you expect from when a guy's asking for as much money as Eli's asking for. He wants to be one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league in payment, and I'm not even sure that's up for debate, because he's not one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league in ability. So I don't know why he should be paid that amount of money, except that he's got the leverage. He's got the leverage. And we talk about that all the time here. If you have the leverage to negotiate, you can get paid. You can get paid in any line of work, but I think it's more exaggerated in sports when you have a scarcity of certain positions, of certain skill sets. Then all of a sudden, is Eli Manning a good quarterback? Yeah, but he's near the middle of the league. You know, you have 32 quarterbacks, and Eli's somewhere around 15, 16 on the list. And that is worth a top 5 contract to most teams, because you don't want to gamble on a guy that can't play at all. You look at how talented some of these guys look, but you still can't be sure that any of them will translate to the NFL. If you draft a new guy, you've got to start from scratch. No, you stick with Eli, because you know he can win. He's just inconsistent, so you don't know if he can always win. But you'll take the inconsistency. You'll take it. But one of the things to talk about with the Redskins, and it's always been an issue of debate. I know that the storyline is that this is recently an issue of debate, but it has always been an issue of debate. The difference between now and then is a couple of things. Daniel Snyder is the owner of the Redskins, and he's made a lot of enemies over the years. The Washington Post, he's made enemies with the local newspaper, which is a huge newspaper so as to be national. He's made a lot of enemies over there. So he has no friends in the press. He's made a lot of enemies with Redskins fans, his own consumer base. He's made a lot of enemies over there. And so Daniel Snyder's within a rock and a hard place here, where the Redskins team name and whether or not it is racist is becoming an issue, seems to always be a hot button issue. But now that the team is bad, it's not helping. And when the owner of the team before Daniel Snyder, Jack Kent Cooke, owned the team, there were a couple of things going for him that Daniel Snyder doesn't have, which is that Jack Kent Cooke was friendly. People liked him. He didn't have a lot of enemies, so there weren't people trying to ruin his day every single day. And the Redskins were good. They were winning in the 80s and early 90s. Those were some good football teams. That the Washington Redskins team that won the Super Bowl in 1991, in the 91-92 season, that team is offensively, according to Pro Football Focus, statistically, one of the greatest offenses of all time. And their quarterback was Mark Rippon. He's not even, legendary quarterback, elite quarterback, but that squad could put up numbers. And the team was winning, the team was good, and you didn't have this whole issue with the team name and whether or not it was racist. People didn't care enough. That conversation wasn't big. Well, now the team's not good. It's easy to kick a team while it's down. Okay. There's lots of things that you can talk about with the Raiders, but like half of the issues that we've had with the Raiders in the past would not have been issues had the Raiders been good. When the Raiders were good under Al Davis, nobody complained about how crazy Al Davis was. When the Raiders were bad under Al Davis, everyone complained about how bad Al Davis was. Winning changes everything. As Vince Lombardi once said, it's not everything, it's the only thing. Winning is the only thing that matters in sports to a certain extent. And then once you start losing, everybody's ready to pile on. But it's easy to pile on Daniel Snyder. He's not a very likable person, and he owns a brand that's not a very likable brand. And if that tells you anything about the brand, like what goes into a brand is entirely philosophical. What goes into a brand is literally something that happens in the minds of the people perceiving the brand. And that's why you're seeing people worry about Volkswagen now because of all of the things that they've done involving cheating those emissions tests. We wonder where Volkswagen will go from here, and if Volkswagen will have to make their cars cheaper or if they'll just have to take the loss of profit. And the reason why you wonder these things is because people don't trust you anymore, even though the thing that you may have done, may or may not have done, may not be that bad, or even not even proven to have happened. If you look at the case of an athlete like Kobe Bryant or Patrick Kane recently, the hockey player who was accused of rape earlier this summer, that may not have happened, but it's already affected the way that we look at him. You can't go back. You can't take it back. The brand is now affected, and it exists in the minds of everybody else. You can't change it. I can't say you can't change it. You can change it, but with a lot of hard work and over a long period of time, that trust that people have in a brand will come back, but it takes a while. And the Redskins, that's something that Daniel Snyder has built, and Daniel Snyder himself was in love with the brand of the Redskins. Daniel Snyder grew up a Redskins fan, so when the team was for sale and he had enough money to buy it, it was a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer. Daniel Snyder would buy this team. So, whether or not you want the Redskins to change their name, he's not going to change it. He's a Redskins fan. He's not going to change it. No matter how much pressure they put on him, he wants to get a new stadium for the team. And lawmakers have said, you are not going to be allowed to build a stadium here if you don't change the name of that team. And he is adamant. He is not going to change the name. Part of it is you've got a fan base. You've got people who have bought into the brand of the Washington Redskins. They like Snyder, don't want the name to change. And Daniel Snyder has not endeared himself to Redskins fans. Okay, if Redskins fans could get together and collectively push Dan Snyder off of a cliff, I am certain many of them would do it and take the collective blame for the homicide, okay? Because he's not been good to the fans. He jacks up ticket prices for this bad football team The Redskins have some of the most expensive ticket prices in sports, much less the NFL, which has expensive ticket prices to begin with. And then on top of that, parking is insane. Parking, to simply park at the game, you will lose hundreds of dollars. And Daniel Snyder seems to be treating his fan base like a cash cow, and nobody is a fan of that. Plus, he's interfering with the team and their front office, and when he hires football guys to do their jobs, he doesn't allow them to do their jobs. You hire a general manager, and then you get in the general manager's way because you like a player better than the general manager does. Then what did you hire him for? What on earth did you hire him for? If you're going to simply stick your hand in the cookie jar and interfere. And we don't like that as Redskins fans. And so on top of all of these things, he's just built up himself a reputation as being a bad owner. And the one thing in sports that will always, always, always guarantee that you're a loser is that you have a bad football team. That you will, if you want to be a loser in sports, have a bad owner. Did I say a bad football team? Have a bad owner. You will never succeed in sports if your owner is bad. It comes from the top down. You look at the Los Angeles Clippers. Okay, Donald Sterling was the owner of that team for years, and he was notoriously cheap. He wouldn't pay his players, and he was racist. And it all affected the culture of that locker room. It affected the culture of the front office because a lot of people felt hamstrung by the fact that you're trying to build a basketball team. You want to pay a guy what he's worth so that you can get him on your team so that your team can finally be good. And, oh, look, here's Donald Sterling blocking another one of your moves because he thinks it might be too expensive for him. Oh, poor billionaire Donald Sterling. And now the Clippers are seeing more success without him. That the fact that the Clippers got good in the first place had nothing to do with Donald Sterling, and the fact that they finally won the draft lottery, got Blake Griffin, and Blake Griffin, unlike most things that the LA Clippers have touched, have turned out to be good. That is entirely apart from Donald Sterling. If you have a bad owner, you cannot win. Conversely, if you have a good owner, you're very, very likely to win. Robert Kraft of the Patriots is a great owner. Mark Cuban, Dallas Mavericks, he's a great owner. And you talk about the Redskins and the team name, and that's only goes into part of it. Daniel Snyder's not going to change the team name, but why are we so hell-bent on having the Redskins change their team name? Now, I'm a Redskins fan, but I'm also more objective. Now that I'm in a broadcast position, I am more objective. I start to find that I don't really care either way what the team is called. Call them the Warriors, call them what Keith Olbermann wanted to call them, the Washington Americans, whatever, okay? I honestly, if they represent Washington, D.C., and they still have the burgundy and gold as their colors, I'll watch it. I'll root for whatever team that is. But I was listening to the radio the other day, and there was a caller that made a point that if anybody is offended by the team name, then you have to change the team name. Like if any group of people thinks that that's a racial slur, and if anybody is offended by that, you have to change the team name. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, why? Like, I understand why on a personal level, why if someone is personally offended by a name that they believe to be a slur, why they would want the team name changed. But how many people is too many people being offended to change the name of the team? What's the magic number there? What is the philosophical difference between 10% of the people being offended and 11% of the people being offended? Should we change the team name if one person is offended? One single person? And does that apply to any other team names? If I get whimsical with the analogy here, if somebody said that bear is a racial slur and therefore the Chicago Bears should change their team name because they are offended, or better yet, if bear is simply not an accurate description of what the Chicago Bears are, because they are a sorry football team and resemble nothing in the way of strength and quickness, because they are bad, and that offends a single person, should the team change their name? Should it change? Do we get into this conversation of political correctness? And I think that there are two extremes there that I think that we dwell on all of the time. One is the prospect of political correctness. We don't like it. We should never have it. Political correctness is bad for everyone. And the other one is that we should cater to everybody. Everybody should be happy. Nobody should ever be offended. And I think both extremes are wrong. And I'll tell you why on the other side here on Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, and myself for all the action.
Hot News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
That smells so good. Smells like a big Italian dinner. But you're going to walk out with two. Buy one hot pizza, get a one for free. 2 pizzas. You got the two for the price of one at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. My favorite Italian restaurant of all the time. Now, I'm living in Hicks, and I go to Raphael's right down the street in Hickson Pike, right near Highland Plaza. You're in Saudi Daisy? Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria in Saudi Daisy. Just next to Saudi Daisy Church of God. Hey, you're on Signal Mountain. There's a Raphael's Italian Restaurant and a Pizzeria. It's right on the main drag. You're going to love the pasta, the pizza. Buy one hot pizza, get a one for free. 2 pizzas. You got the two for the price of one at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Tastes so good. Bring the whole family. Come on, Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Mangia. Salute.
Tired of insurance companies? Tired of doctors that won't spend time with you? Do something different. Leave the sick care model of medicine and come to Dr. Danielle Mitchell, the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health, where we're interested in long-term health solutions, not the quick fixes. Come see me, Dr. Danielle Mitchell, at the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health. I'm all about the long-term healthcare solutions and doing what's best. On the web, you can find me at ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. That's ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. Or call us at 875-1005, 875-1005, or find us on social media, Facebook, Dr. Danielle Mitchell, or the ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. Let's go, ya!
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Costa, host of the Costa Report, every Sunday at 9 a.m. My guest this week is former Congresswoman and candidate for the presidency, Miss Michelle Bachmann, who'll be here to talk about just how big a role beliefs play in forging public policy. Don't miss the always controversial Michelle Bachmann this Sunday at 9 a.m. on the Costa Report on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
So we have the political correctness conversation every time some group of people rises up and says they're offended by the Redskins' name. And look, for the people who are offended, I'm not saying their grievances are not legitimate. Okay. There are many, many Native American groups who are not okay with the team name. And if that's the reason that Daniel Snyder wants to change it, then I'll leave that to him. But I can't be the person that says, let's knock down the door here and change the team name, and this is going to bring us progress. Because it isn't. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to change anything, especially with the way that our country has treated Native Americans in the past, and honestly, the way that we continue to treat them. That's not going to change with the Redskins changing their team name, because honestly, I hear Redskins, I don't think of anything but football. I think of this sorry football team that I root for. If you're offended that the Redskins seem to represent Native American culture in some way and seem to never win anything, that is also a thing that you can be offended about too. And that also makes sense. I don't think that changing the team name is going to bring about the progress that people championing that cause seem to think it will bring about. What is it going to change? Now a bad football team will be named another thing. The football team will continue to be bad, and the people who feel slurred against and feel slighted will continue to be in a position of helplessness. So what does that change exactly? In my mind, it doesn't change anything. There are so many more important things that we can focus on. There are so many important things that we can be trying to fix. There's so many more important things that our lawmakers can be focusing on and trying to fix, that our lawmakers are trying to fix this, to work on this, as opposed to, I don't know, pick a problem that this country has. There are so many. So many. But part of this issue also involves context, as all branding issues do. Right? In the context of football, the team name is really not that bad. It doesn't do anything. In the context of race relations, it's pretty awful. It's pretty awful. And the fact that Daniel Snyder has found some Native American groups that are cool with the team name, some of which he may have bribed, by the way. He may have bribed one or two Native American groups to get them to say that they were okay with the team name. But even the one or two groups that he said are okay with the team name, we end up with the problem of whose voice do we listen to, right? Either you listen to the voice that says, this is offensive, change it, or the voice that says, this is not offensive, you don't have to change it. Someone is getting ignored either way. But for whatever reason, we find it better and more likely to lean to the side of the person being offended, as though nobody's allowed to be offended, and as though the unoffended don't have the same rights. And so context has to do with that. The context shifts depending on whether or not we're talking about football or not. It does. And I don't know that this is one of those situations where you look back in the history books and go, this team used to be called the Redskins. Now, isn't that awful? You do look back in the history books and you see the water fountains, one marked whites only, the other marked coloreds, and that makes you cringe. That makes you recoil a little bit, because that being changed was progress. So it's a context situation. And the same thing occurs with gambling. When you talk about what is illegal and legal gambling, and we've talked about it a little bit with DraftKings and FanDuel, especially the two big one-day fantasy sports leagues that are basically legalized gambling. Through loopholes in the law, they are allowed to operate. And many lawyers are standing up and looking at this and going, is this really legal? Is this actually legal? If it is barely at all. Here's the thing about the legality of these situations. FanDuel and DraftKings operate under the fact that when you have to pick players for your fantasy football team, that takes skill. So this is a game of skill and not a game of chance. So you end up with a situation where you put some money in, and then the better your team does as you move up the leaderboards, the more money you stand to make. But you can also lose money, which is weird that I hear that in the FanDuel and DraftKings ads, how many millions of dollars you could stand to make. And they never mention the fact that you could also lose money, which I understand from a marketing perspective wouldn't work. You don't emphasize the fact that your user could lose money. But if your user could lose money, it does seem rather unethical to not mention it at all. It doesn't even come up. They bring out the guy that says, "Oh, look, I won $1 million in FanDuel." And they give the guy this ridiculous nickname, Mike Perez from Arizona. He played FanDuel and won $3 million. He's Mikey Millions, as his friends call him. Like, what? Like, okay, so he won $1 million. Great, fantastic. And the thing to me is, the lottery, by the way, I am equally as disgusted by the lottery. And it's that level of sleaze that you are so unlikely to win the lottery. And at the same time, we just talk about the winnings. And not we, but the state. It's one thing if a corporation whose motivation is to make money off of you is downplaying how much money you could lose because it is their goal to make money off of you. The fact that the government is trying to make money off of you and using the same tactics, it's gross. It's disgusting. Like, I feel physically ill when I think about that. That the Tennessee government runs the Tennessee lottery and they have ads that tell you you could win millions while not telling you that you could lose a lot of money. You're not a company. You're not trying to make a profit. So you have to tell me of the risks. But they don't do that. They behave like someone trying to turn a profit, whose only goal is profit and nothing else. It's gross. And I'm starting to find the FanDuel and the DraftKings to be a little bit gross as well. That these are games of skill. And, a lot of times you look through a lot of data and a lot of statistics to tell you, okay, well, Julio Jones is playing very well to start the season. I'm going to start Julio Jones over Calvin Johnson. They're both talented wide receivers. I'm going to pick Tom Brady to be my quarterback, even though he hasn't completed but more than maybe 3 passes over 20 yards this entire season. I'm going to pick Matt Jones as my running back because he's a sleeper pick and all of these things. But when you add money to the equation, okay, that people are putting money into this, how is that any more of a game of skill than horse racing? You're not betting on random horses. Talk to guys who bet on horses. They don't just show up and pick a horse. They know which horse runs better in the rain. If a horse has a hurt foot, or hurt hoof, I guess, for a horse, they know about it. Okay, so that doesn't make a ton of sense. That this is more of a game of skill. And there are actually states in which FanDuel does not operate because of the dubiousness of the company. Washington, Louisiana, Iowa, and Arizona are states that FanDuel doesn't operate in, not because it's necessarily illegal in those states. Montana is the only state in which FanDuel is out and out illegal. FanDuel, DraftKings. Montana is against all of those kinds of games. You can't run that company out of there. You're not allowed to play those games if you live in Montana. But everywhere else, and especially in those states that I mentioned, the laws are not friendly towards it, so they still stay away. You could play it, but they don't really operate there. And it all comes down to what each state law defines as a game of chance. It's much more loosely defined in Nevada than it is in New York. It's much more loosely defined. And so FanDuel operates in states in which have laws that are beneficial to the definition of what counts as a game of skill. But there was a reporter who spent a week on FanDuel and just basically said that they would like to have bet on the games. The U.S. law does not allow you to bet on the games directly, which would have taken less of their money because you only have one factor involved. This person played a week on FanDuel, put in a few $100s, and walked away with a net gain of $13. You know, and there's a report. It's a report in Fortune magazine, and Mark Edelman, the law professor of Baruch College, he doesn't think these games are legal, and more and more lawyers are starting to think that there might be something to the legality claim that maybe FanDuel and DraftKings could be in trouble, and they could be in trouble very soon. But these companies have come out of nowhere. That I don't recall hearing about FanDuel and DraftKings a year ago, and then all of a sudden there are FanDuel and DraftKings ads all over the place. You can't avoid it. And I don't know how long until lawmakers take notice and put this thing down. I'm not saying it's right or wrong one way or the other. I personally am not a betting man, so I don't participate because it is gambling. That is a fact. Whether or not it's right or wrong, I'll leave that up to you. But whether or not it's legal or illegal, it's legal with a loophole, and it is gambling. It's gambling. We don't have to kid ourselves here. We're all grown-ups. We can all look at the situation and go, this is what it is. Where I have an issue, though, is if gambling is allowed in that sense, and FanDuel certainly does take more luck than you give yourself credit for, because look, if I look up data that tells me how a team is going to perform, how is that any less a game of skill than if I look up data that tells me how an individual player is going to perform? It isn't. There is no difference at all. There's only difference in loophole only, which is insane. And that we have to wonder whether or not the federal government should even be the entity that is deciding whether or not you should be doing this thing. There's some things the government does. We may not all agree with it, but at least there's a reason and a logic there. Some kind. With this, I'm not sure where it is. And honestly, I don't think anybody does. And I do think that the way that we've seen the aggressive push forward for FanDuel and DraftKings, it almost feels like they're trying to get it while they can. Trying to get ahead while they can, because I don't think that even they know how long they're going to last. And then there's the other ethical issue of you are a player, you can't pick yourself in FanDuel. You can't play in FanDuel. You don't get to participate. And they have FanDuel for college. And college athletes, because of the NCAA rules, definitely can't participate. And it's insane to me that you could be Jamal Charles, running back for the Chiefs. You could blow out your knee, and somebody else might actually profit off of that playing DraftKings or FanDuel, and you, who blew out your knee, cannot even participate. That's wrong. It is wrong. Like ethically, not just legally. There are people who are allowed to profit, but the people who are participating and who have the most to lose in this entire situation, the actual athletes that are being used, don't get to participate at all. Their names get to be used in these leagues, and they don't get to participate. They see none of the money. None whatsoever. Unbelievable. is Clutch with Keon Rose. You're listening to AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Throughout our morning hours with mostly cloudy skies. Heading into this afternoon and evening, we'll see a few more showers with cooler high temperatures, only climbing into the low 70s. This forecast is brought to you by Nature's Harvest Bread, featuring every variety of their bread with at least 8 grams of whole grains per serving. That's Nature's Harvest Bread. And I'm WDEF News 12 meteorologist Megan Wise.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Are you tired of feeling like just another account number to your financial advisor? Try something refreshingly different. Call Edward Jones Financial Advisor Patrick Neal in Hickson at 870-7894. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
Here you are, working to keep your customers happy and to manage your cash flow. IRS problems are the last thing you need, but here they are, flapping about you like vultures. Get help from Eric Pelton and his team of accountants at E.J. Pelton Company. Audits, letters, proposed return changes, 1099s, penalty threats. Pelton Tax Resolution Services brings peace of mind and helps you keep more of what you've earned. EJPelton.com. Offices on Brainerd Road and in Saudi Daisy, just north of the Bilo. That's EJ Pelton. Call 622-3156. Think ahead, 622-3156. An alternative to insurance for people of Christian interest is Samaritan Ministries, a cost-sharing group whose fellow members contribute to your medical expenses. Hi, David Tulis here, member of Samaritan Ministries. I have no deductibles, no silly in-network rules. I choose my own doctors. I'm a cash payer and get the cash discount with med providers. I'm 100% compensated by Christian families around the nation who send their checks directly with a personal note and pray for me in my medical distress. I have a family membership. I write a $405 check every month to a person in need. Just love it. Learn more about Samaritan Ministries Tuesday, September 29 at 7 p.m. at Brainerd Hills Presbyterian Church on East Brainerd Road. It's a mini conference on the Christian alternative to medical insurance.
Context changes everything. A lot of people were very upset when John Jay High School, those 2 football players that tackled a referee who was defenseless and not paying attention, everyone was mad at those kids. And we were talking about everything from suspending them from football for the season, from suspending them from school. And we had a report earlier this week. Basically, the principal talked to the coach that was accused of telling them to hit the referee, and the coach admitted it. The coach said, yeah, I told him to hit the referee. The referee made a racial slur, and I told them to hit him, which is out and out the worst way to handle a situation. I don't know what that teaches those young men, that, yeah, every time someone says something bad about you and to you, you tackle them and spear them with your helmet. These kids have to grow up and work in a workplace where people aren't going to say the nicest things every day. In fact, most days, people aren't going to say the nicest things. And sometimes that's going to be a slur. It shouldn't happen. Not pro-racial slur, okay? It should never happen, but it will, because people can be awful sometimes. And how you have to handle that as an adult is with a maturity and with a dignity that people won't typically expect of you. You know, and it's a biblical principle, but it's a principle that I think is just good for life in general, that you treat other people the way that you would treat yourself, even if they do not treat you that way. It's a good principle to have. And this coach didn't have it, and he didn't teach it to those players. But does it not change the way that you view those players that the coach admitted that he told them to hit the referee? Again, these are high school students. There is a certain age. At 16 years old, you can say, yeah, they could have made a decision for themselves. They could have made a different decision, and they could have. You're still responsible for the actions that you make. And at 16 years old, that was a bad decision. Listening to that coach was a bad decision. But how much influence does the coach have over a player, especially one who is in his teenage years? You're learning how to be an adult. You're learning how to handle social pressures. You're learning how to handle maybe even financial pressures in your life, depending on what your family situation is. You're learning how to handle different changes going on with you physically, emotionally. And on top of that, you're expected to make the correct decision in life. And sometimes you need a coach, you need a mentor, you need a teacher who is going to tell you to do the right things, so that those are habits that are instilled in you as you try and struggle and learn to deal with the way that your life is changing. A lot of 15, 16-year-olds, they're scared. They're confused as to just being at that age that comes with the territory. College is right around the corner. You're like right around the corner from people not treating you like a kid anymore. And all the benefits that come with that, and all of the bad things that come with that. That people are not going to be treating you like a kid anymore. No one's going to be helping you out very shortly. That's terrifying. And they needed that coach to teach them how to handle that situation, and he let them down. To me, it does change the situation. It does change it a lot. That these two kids were not bad kids that decided to just hit a ref. But they were just kids that were following directions from somebody who they respected and somebody who they found it difficult to go against. That when you're in high school, there are certain people it's hard to go against. For me, that was my parents, and that was a few youth pastors at my church. And my editor at the school newspaper. Those people, I found it very difficult to go against. I respected them a lot. Their word didn't just mean a lot to me. Their word meant everything to me. I didn't think that these people would ever tell me to do the wrong thing. Because I was 16. You can think back to a time when you were 16 years old and someone told you to do something and you did not even question it, whether the thing was right or wrong. Everyone can. That's what being at that age is. You need good mentors. The context changes. If you look at a guy like Patrick Kane, the Chicago Blackhawks player, star, he was accused of rape earlier this summer, and we're finding out it's very possible that the woman who accused him of rape used a fake rape kit to accuse him of rape as evidence that he raped her. And he was denying it, he was fighting it, but nobody gave him the benefit of the doubt. And I didn't either. And you know why? Because we are in a culture right now where rape and where domestic abuse and where domestic violence has reached a fever pitch in the sports world. That there are so many cases where the victim is correct, and I don't think that it's wrong to side with the victim, by the way, because you can't sit there and tell every person who says that they've been raped that they're a liar, because if they're telling the truth, you've left a person alone in a dangerous situation. Can't do that. Can't do that. But at the same time, nobody gave Patrick Kane the benefit of the doubt. You were like, if this is true, this is really, really bad for Patrick Kane. And that was where that got left. It was just like, well, hope he didn't do it. And you have to say that now because so many times before you've been wrong. You've been wrong with Adrian Peterson. You've been wrong with U.S. goalie Hope Solo. You've been wrong with Ray Rice. These people, these athletes were in situations where they domestically abused somebody. And you're wrong about them. That if you believe that they were innocent, you were wrong. So now you overreact. You overcompensate in the other direction. Patrick Kane is accused of rape, and you don't want to believe in him. You don't know Patrick Kane. I don't even think enough people around here watch hockey. But you still heard the news. You saw the news go down on the little ticker of SportsCenter. And you're just like, well, hope he didn't do it. Because I can't say with any certainty that he didn't. The culture has made it that way. That's what the context has changed. And it gets to be one of those things where you see a guy like Greg Hardy who plays for the Cowboys now. He's currently suspended because he choked his girlfriend, and he choked his girlfriend on a pile of guns, which is like, you're not allowed to have, and the weapons weren't legal. Like, it is just a number of things stacking up on top of each other. Like, you have weapons that aren't legal. You are choking your girlfriend, and you have to wonder what even led to that situation in the first place. But more importantly, the context of that is a very different thing, because you look at all the evidence of this and you're like, there's no way to frame that differently. Whereas with Patrick Kane, a young woman went over to his house and later said that she raped him. That's a different case. Like, we actually could have given Patrick Kane the benefit of the doubt on that one, but we were just so afraid to, and we were just so scared to, that we didn't. Which is how we've become. We're just super skeptical of everything. There's a cynicism around sports that I don't like. I think it hurts sports. I think it hurts it that you used to be able to just say things, and we all are victims of this. That if you are an athlete, you can no longer say the interesting thing that you used to say, because there's a culture now that says you don't say anything pompous. You must be humble. We'll take fake humble over real arrogance. And I think that fake humble is worse. Yet if someone is actually arrogant, yes, pride is not a great thing to have. Okay? Pride in excess. That if you are prideful, you believe you're proud of the way that you look, you're proud of the way that you carry yourself, then be proud of who you are. But when you are proud to the excess, where you believe that you are greater than others, then that's not a great thing to have. But if you actually believe that, if that's the way that you actually think, then I want to know that about you. And I want that to actually be you. I don't want you to fake humility when you actually believe that you're better than everyone else. It's going to come out eventually. It's bad for players. It's bad for fans. It's bad for fans. We used to be able to interact with each other openly and honestly, and we can't do that. And I think Reddit is a great example of this. That I go on Reddit. I'm on the sports subreddits, all of them. You could find me at any point. I will not give out the name because I like to remain anonymous, but I'm all over that place. And I find one of the disturbing trends on sports message boards and on Reddit is that once we roll with a popular opinion, like if the popular opinion of the day is we don't like Tim Tebow, anybody saying anything to the contrary, whether or not they actually believe that, is absolutely blasted on the internet. Like, we don't like that at all. How dare you have an opinion on the internet that is different than mine? How dare you? And that didn't used to be that way. And I don't even mean like before the internet. It didn't used to be that way on the internet. Did you used to be able to tell people, you know what, but I like this Tim Tebow guy. I think he's a swell guy. And people wouldn't rip you for that because it was the popular opinion of the day. But now we live in the day of the hot take, the red hot sports take. You say the most extreme thing is the take of the day. And if you don't agree with that, if you're not on board with the extremes of that, well then, no, you're not allowed to. You know, we have these news reports from the media that may or may not even be substantiated. Okay. You always have sources in the media. You name your sources, right? You confirm your sources. But in sports media is probably one of the only places where it's okay to simply say, sources say such and such a thing. You never have to confirm your sources. You never have to even confirm that you have a source. We're just so hungry for sports news that we'll take anything and then we run with it. And then when people offer skepticism to the contrary, we destroy them for it. For having a different opinion based on what could be facts, but it can't be any more factual than what you've decided to run with. If Chris Broussard, ESPN reporter, says, I have multiple sources one more time, I'm going to put my fist through a screen. What multiple sources? Can you name one? And I understand that there is some level of confidentiality in it, that people around NBA front offices are less likely to tell you things if they're liable to find out that their boss knows that they're talking to the media. They don't want that. That's how we get these inside scoops. You see a guy like Adrian Wojnarowski for Yahoo Sports. He's incredible. He's almost never wrong. And he's reporting the news a lot of times a couple of days before it's confirmed. I don't know how he does it. Like, if you want to have a good time on draft day in the NBA, during the NBA draft, just follow Adrian Wojnarowski. You'll know who's being picked about 3 minutes before the team actually puts in their official selection. It's cool. It's cool, but I don't know how he does it. But Adrian Wojnarowski is not that style of reporting where you have sources and you can't name any of them, because a lot of these guys end up being wrong. I can't remember the name of the reporter for ESPN who basically said that the Ravens owner and the Giants owner wanted the Patriots to pay for Deflategate because they feel like the Patriots are always getting away with stuff. And both of those owners put out statements to ESPN saying that they never said that. And then, of course, he backed off the statement. So I don't like that. The media doesn't tell us the truth. We, the fans, can't tell each other the truth. And then the players can't tell us the truth. We're just all lying to each other in the name of sports and in the name of what exactly? Because it doesn't help the sports itself. It doesn't make the sports more interesting. Sure, it gives us more stuff to talk about, but none of it's real. It's an illusion that we all created. So that's me ruining your weekend. This is Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Throughout our morning hours with mostly cloudy skies. Heading into this afternoon and evening, we'll see a few more showers with cooler high temperatures, only climbing into the low 70s.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Sunny Daisy, Chattanooga.
CBS News, I'm Stephen Portnoy, live at the Capitol, where House Speaker John Boehner tells reporters he arrived at his decision to resign today.
This morning I woke up and I said my prayers, as I always do, and I decided, today's the day I'm going to do this.
Facing a small but growing group of conservatives who back an effort to oust him, Boehner says he'll resign instead, effective October 30th.
It's become clear to me that this prolonged leadership turmoil would do irreparable harm to the institution.
Boehner grew intensely emotional yesterday, standing alongside Pope Francis on a balcony overlooking the throngs on the National Mall. But he says that experience did not affect his decision. The announcement comes ahead of a shutdown deadline next Wednesday. Boehner's expected to put on the floor a funding bill that includes money for Planned Parenthood. It's a move that will incense conservatives, but will sharply reduce the likelihood that the government will shut down. A likely successor to Boehner, House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy. But my CBS News Capitol Hill colleague Nancy Cortez poses a key question.
How will things be different with another speaker? The cast of characters here in Congress doesn't change. The list of things that they want doesn't change.
At the White House, President Obama calls Boehner a good man and a patriot. I'm Stephen Portnoy, live at the Capitol. Now with more CBS News, here's Jim Taylor.
At the White House, President Obama and President Xi of China.
President Obama got the assurances he wanted on cybercrime targeting U.S. businesses.
We have jointly affirmed the principle that governments don't engage in cyber espionage for commercial gain against companies.
Through an interpreter, Xi pledged continued reforms in China, but asserted their claims in the South China Sea, activity that's rattled U.S. friends in the region.
Islands in the South China Sea since ancient times are China's territory.
On John Boehner, the president called him a good man and a patriot and refused to predict if his departure would make it harder or easier to deal with Congress. Pam Coulter, CBS News, the White House.
Pope Francis on a busy day in New York City, leading an emotional interfaith service at the 9/11 memorial.
It was wonderful. It's a moving tribute, so we just came to represent the family, and I got a little glimpse of, Francis. It was great, though. Really nice.
Earlier, the Pope addressing the UN General Assembly. Later, he visits a school in East Harlem, takes a Pope-mobile cruise through Central Park, and then celebrates Mass at Madison Square Garden. Also at the United Nations today, Nobel Peace Prize winner Malala Yousafzai, talking about the need to lend a hand to refugees.
It's important that people open their hearts and people open their lands to people who are now needing our support and who need the right to live. Because right now I feel that the right to live is neglected.
Caitlyn Jenner is a woman. California judge makes the gender change official. It's a feel-good day on Wall Street. The Dow right now up 235 points. This is CBS News.
Hi, folks. Alan Thicke here. For some time now, I've been offering tips about how to deal with the IRS if you've fallen behind on your taxes. Telling you to call Optima Tax Relief because they're the best trained, most trustworthy, blah, blah, and blah. But now the message is so familiar, you may not be listening. Oh, it's him again. Well, here's the important message. Call Optima Tax Relief. They can help you resolve your IRS issues. The government, can garnish your wages. They can levy your bank account, even take your home or business. To be fair, the IRS also has a new program called the Fresh Start Initiative to help you with that debt. So we've given you clever slogans. Don't mess with the IRS. They'd rather settle for less than bother you more. Now the clever thing for you to do is call Optima Tax Relief now for your free consultation.
Call 800-956-6166. 800-956-6166. 800-956-6166. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
He was the most powerful man in the world of soccer. Right now, he appears to be getting deeper and deeper into trouble.
Swiss police interrogated World Soccer chief Sepp Blatter, and prosecutors say they've opened a criminal investigation into the FIFA president. He's suspected of criminal mismanagement and misappropriation of funds. The Swiss Attorney General says Blatter's office was searched and data was seized. In May, U.S. and Swiss authorities said they were investigating corruption at the highest levels of the sport. 14 officials and marketing executives have already been indicted. The 79-year-old Blatter denies any wrongdoing. Larry Miller, CBS News, London.
They are closed again today. 2 Los Angeles beaches shut down while crews clean up hypodermic needles, condoms, and other waste that washed ashore there. Crews already collecting at least 200 pounds of waste from these beaches. Officials say it was discharged from a pipeline belonging to a city-owned treatment plant. I'm Jim Taylor, CBS News.
Hi, I'm Parker Connor.